Hello, welcome to Tabletop CP, and today we're going to be doing a painting tutorial on the new plastic U.S. D-Day Airborne by Warlord Games. They were nice enough to send me a couple sprues of these to look at, and I have done a review on them, and my general impression is that they're very nice, very detailed, very crisp, fit together very well. So if you are on the fence at all about getting these, then fear not. They're definitely worth getting and are quite nice. So that being said, this painting tutorial is going to be pretty basic. I'm going to be painting them to this standard here. This is my tabletop standard, or high tabletop standard I call it, because I add another layer of highlights than I normally would if I was just going to basic tabletop standard. But they look good. The 3-foot rule, if you're 3 feet above the table, you're looking down, they look great. Maybe not perfect if you're zooming in on them, but overall they get the point across, and I think that they look fairly nice for being relatively quick to paint. So that is the standard that I'm going for, and apologize for the how crude the setup is for my painting tutorials. I don't have it locked in. There's some really professional painting tutorials out there. This isn't going to be one of them. This is going to be very basic. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing up is the uniform. So I always start with the lowest layer down, so the uniform, and I build up from there, so up to the webbing, to the helmet. Just start at the bottom, work up. That's a hint I would give to you if you're just starting painting. So the uniform, I'm going to use Vallejo khaki, just basic Vallejo khaki. I know there's lots of different ways to paint this version of the Airborne uniform, which has a definitely khaki look to it. I just went with Vallejo khaki. I don't try to blend colors together. I don't get that fancy at all. I see khaki, I use it, and it turns out it comes out pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Vallejo khaki and just go over the entire uniform. All right, so the khaki uniform is done. So just, again, I start at the bottom. The reason I do that is if you were to start painting the webbing and then trying to paint the uniform, you have to be very precise to not get the khaki on the webbing. This way, it doesn't matter if you get a little bit on the stuff above it. You're going to be going over it anyway with the next color. So it just speeds up the whole process. So next up, I am going to do the patches. So these Airborne have different colored patches on the knees and elbows, and those are generally green. For that, I'm going to be using U.S. dark green. Okay, so the patches on the knees and elbows are done. Next, I'm going to do all of the webbing. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. I'm going to be using Vallejo green gray, as I like the contrast with the khaki uniform. The models or the examples on Warlord's site show the webbing to be very near the same color as the uniform, which may be technically correct, but I don't think that there's enough contrast. It just all kind of blends in together. With the green gray, it adds a little contrast, so it stands out a little bit better against the khaki uniform. So the webbing, so that's going to be the backpack, the belt, the canteen pouch, these cross bandoliers that I put on him. I'm going to paint this demo charge with that as well. Part of the top part of the chin strap, I'm going to do with those as well. And he has some tie downs on his legs. These are to hold his knife on and stuff. So I'm going to paint those in green gray as well. The Warlord examples are white, but I didn't quite like how the white looks, so I'm just going to stick with the same color I'm using for all the other webbing. Also the rifle sling is going to be that as well. So there's quite a bit of this green gray webbing color. So let's get that done. So the green gray is complete, and I forgot one step. Before I do the green gray, I typically like to use the Vallejo brown violet. That's the color I use for painted metal for Americans, so that olive drab color. I usually do that. I put that on the helmet, also on the scabbard of this leg knife here. The helmet, you can almost probably honestly skip that step because there's going to be a lot more colors going over it, but I still like to put it on there just in case a hint of it might come through after all the other stuff's on there. But they are wearing a helmet net over the helmet as well, and I dry brushed that helmet net in that green gray as well. So it's a good idea to put this color, this brown violet color down first and let it dry, so that as part of the webbing step, you can do a light dry brush on any exposed webbing or netting, I should say, that you see on the helmet. There isn't a lot. These helmets are pretty densely packed with scrim camo and other stuff, just various pieces of cloth and stuff, camouflage. There isn't a ton of helmet netting showing through on these, but there is a little bit. So I will just go ahead and go through and paint that the brown violet, and then I will also do the scabbard for the leg knife as well. And this is, again, not going to show through very much, if at all, but you never know. It's good just to put it on there, just to keep yourself keep yourself consistent while doing these models. If you're going to be doing a whole bunch of them, just better to stay consistent. So we'll do the scabbard on the leg as well. Looks like I'm going to need a little bit more, but okay, so that's that. So what I'll do it off camera, but once this dries, I'll go through with the light dry brush and just hit any exposed netting on the helmet with that same green-gray color. But other than that, you can see that the green-gray is now done. The leg tie-down straps, backpack, chin strap, rifle sling, demo charge, all this webbing or ammo pouches on the belt, canteen. There's quite a bit. So there's quite a bit of that green-gray that needs to be done on here. So next up, we're going to do the rifle. So for wood, I use the same wood for all of my rifle butts and stocks and everything, and that's the mahogany brown by Vallejo. It's just a good solid wood color. Next part we will do is the leather. So the boots are going to be leather, and it's very small, but there's a small handle on this boot knife. That's also going to be leather. So for this, I'm using the Vallejo red leather, and this is probably one of my favorite parts of these models, as it really makes them pop, makes them stand out. It's a nice contrast to the rest of the model with this nice red-looking color. That's the leather. So really cool. So we'll do the boots and the handle for the boot knife. All right, so there we have the red leather part done. I also forgot another part of red leather is the chin part of the chin strap is also going to be that red leather color as well. So the top part's going to be green-gray, and then the part that goes on the chin itself is going to be red leather. So next up, we're going to do black, the black parts. So the black parts are any metal on the rifle, any metal on the sling, and there's buttons on the ammo pouches, and there's buttons on the canteen, and then the canteen cap is going to be black. Oh, and of course the soles of the boots are going to be black as well. So this is probably the first time in my painting career that I've had painted boots two different colors. I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a try. That's what the example looks like. It looks really cool. I like it. So the soles of the boots are black as well. And for the buttons on the ammo pouches and the canteen cover or canteen pouch, I use a toothpick with a sharp point, dip it in the black, and then just dab onto the buttons. I found that works a little bit better than trying to paint them on. If your point's not perfectly sharp and you push a little too hard, it could smudge and work its way over onto the pouch itself. But I found using the sharp toothpick and just dabbing it on gives a nice round dot right on that raised button on the model. So with that, let's go ahead and do the black parts. All right, done with the black. So the next thing we need to do is the scrim camo on the helmet. So I did a lot of different experimentation trying to find the right color, one that wasn't too bright, one that wasn't too dark. It was tough, but I think I found some that work, and the bulk of them, probably 90% of the scrim, I'm going to paint in this German camo dark green. And then 1 or 2 strands I'll paint with this German camo pale brown. It's looking at pictures and stuff. It looks like they had mostly the darker green scrim and then a couple of strips of like lighter brown. So I'll just paint most of it with the German camo dark green and then just a couple with that German camo pale brown. Okay, so there we go. That's base colors done. I guess I did forget to do some of the buckles on the webbing in black. There's also the buckles on the backpacker black as well. Other than that, I think I got everything done for black. And that'll do it. So that's the base color. Everything blocked in is the term I use. I think that's a term out there as well that I must have got it from somewhere. So there he is. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use Agrax Earthshade Wash. So we're going to cover the whole model with Agrax Earthshade Wash. So what this was going to do is get down into those crevices in the uniform and those spaces between those leg straps and the uniform, in the rifle, everywhere. It's going to add shadow, it's going to add depth, and this is what's going to make this model really pop once we get to the next step after the Agrax dry. So Agrax Earthshade, it's a Games Workshop product. It's a brown wash. You can use whatever color wash you use. I prefer to use this. I've always used it and it works really well. So I'll just get a big brush and just cover the whole model. You don't want to do too much. I mean, you don't want it pooling and into big places. So you don't want pools of it just collecting. So you don't want to go too thick, but you don't want to go too thin either. You want it to get in there, but not pool. So that just takes a little practice, but it's not that hard. All right, so now the Agrax Earthshade is dry, and you can see there's now shadow, and the whole model is quite dark, but what we're interested in are these pieces, or these parts in the folds of the uniform, folds in the backpack, anywhere where shadow would be naturally. That's what we're after. So the next step is the longest step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same exact colors that I painted this model with to begin with, and I'm going to go over it much more precisely, keeping all of these shadows intact. I don't want to paint over these, as that's what's going to give our model some depth. All right, so we've gone through and we have done the first highlight, doing my best to not get rid of any of the shadows. This is what it looks like. So the next step is I'm going to take those same colors yet again, and I'm going to add a little bit of this stone gray into each one. This is going to lighten those colors up. And with that, I'm just going to go over the edges. So the tops of the folds, any high edge like the top of this bandolier, top of the boot, that's going to add the final highlight layer. Okay, so done with the final highlight layer on the uniform and equipment. And this is what it looks like now. So again, tabletop standard. If you're zooming in and looking super close, it's not super great, but from high above, it looks pretty good, and it's pretty fast. You can do 3 or 4 of these guys at a time. Have them done in a couple of days if you're really applying yourself. So it's a fast method, and it's decent. So next thing I need to do, I guess I should mention the amount of the highlight color. In this case, I'm using the stone gray. You can use any kind of off-white color to the original colors just to brighten them up a little bit. And depending on the amount you put in is how bright the highlights are going to be. I do maybe a third of the amount of base color for the stone gray. So a third of the stone gray to the 2/3 base color. It's a subtle highlight, but it definitely shows up when you look at it. Another highlight I haven't done yet, but I'll do here in a minute, is I use the Vallejo metallic black, and I just lightly highlight the metal parts. That gives them a little bit of shine. So I'll do that for the metal on the weapon. I don't tend to go over the buttons again, but I will go over some of the buckles, especially if I paint it over them like I did on this one here. And I also use a black gray to highlight any black rubber, like on the boots. That'll give a little bit of highlight to that straight black. It's just a very, very dark gray. And other than that, I think once I do that, we're ready for the skin. Okay, skin time. So the skin, it's a constant struggle for me. I've always sucked at doing faces. I think I've kind of locked in on a new technique that works fairly well. So I'm going to use this Vallejo flat flesh, go over all the skin, and then I'm going to use, I believe it's Gilman flesh. It's a contrast paint from Warlord Games, one of the contrast paints. I don't remember exactly. It's like Gilman flesh or something like that. But I go over that flat flesh with it, and that gives it the same shadow and everything that the Agrax Earthshade does to the uniform. And then next up, I'll paint the eyes. So I'll get white, very carefully go in the eye. Then I'll get black and even more carefully try to get the pupils in, which is extremely difficult for me. Sometimes they look okay, sometimes they don't. I just kind of go with it because the more I fiddle with it, the worse it gets. So I hope to do well on the first time. If it's horrible, I'll redo the whole thing, but if it's okay, I'll just leave it. But after you do the white for the eyes, you do the black for the pupil, then I do the same thing. I go back with the base color, flat flesh, and I paint the face, the hands, leaving that shadow from that Gilman flesh in there, just like I did with the Agrax on the uniform. And then I will take some of this Vallejo highlight flesh and use that as a highlight to mix in with the flat flesh, and I'll just really carefully go over the nose, the chin, the knuckles. That'll add a little bit of a highlight to the skin. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully this one comes out. So let's see what happens here. All right, face done. That was painful. Well, let's take a look at it. I can zoom in so you can see he looks kind of surprised. And I would call that a mediocre eye job, but I'm not going to redo it. It's better to paint a line down the middle of the white part with the black for the people than try to put a dot, because when you put a dot, they tend to look surprised like that. But honestly, I don't always know how it's going to turn out because I guess my hand isn't steady enough, my brush isn't pointy enough. I just kind of put it in there and hope for the best. The reason for doing the eyes before you do the highlight layer is, in theory, you can clean up the eyes. So a lot of people say to paint the white part bigger and then they'll draw a line straight down and then cover that up with the highlight layer of the flat flesh again. So you kind of shape the eyes after you put them in when you do it this way. And I did that to some extent. It was worse than that, and that's kind of about as good as I can make it. So I'm happy with it. It's definitely not great. I've never been great at eyes. I just kind of hope, put it in there and hope for the best. So next thing I'm going to do, well, that's, first of all, that's the model done. So tabletop standard looks fairly decent. Next up, I got to do the base. So I did, you probably noticed, I put the sand on the base after I put the model on, and then I primed it. That just saves a step. It saves the boots from getting dirty when if you're trying to put base on after you do the model. It can get messy. So the best way I found is after you put the model together, you put the sand on it, and then you put the primer on it, and then it's all done. So the base standard for me, I just get some cheap brown paint from my local hobby store or craft store, like Michael's in this case. It's like $2 for this, lasts a long time. And you don't want to use the expensive Vallejo paint for this because it's not necessary. This is the first layer, it's a dark brown. And then after that, I am going to highlight it with a dry brush of some of this tan earth. That's the first part of the base done. Now I'm going to put the static grass tufts and paint the edge. So for that, let's use some plain old glue, and I am using this generic green static grass for the base. So I'll just put some white glue on, put some of that static grass on, let it dry, and then shake it off into here. And then for these models, I'm using two different kinds of tufts. I'm using the jungle tuft and this lowland shrub just to add some variety to it. And then once that's all said and done, I will paint the edge of the base with German camo pale brown. And then once that's done, we're almost done. All we have to do is decals. So let's do the base right now. All right, so next up, we are going to put the decals on. So the model's finished, base is done. I have decided to go with the 82nd Airborne on these guys. After polling the Facebook group, 82nd was the clear choice. 101st is great and everything, but it seems like everyone's doing that, so I was happy to go 82nd. Plus, it allows me to put this flag on there, which adds another decal. So there's a little more flash on there. So I am going to cut these out, and then we'll go over how to put them on the model. All right, I'm going to try to do this in real time here. So first I'm going to put some of this micro set on. So I get an old brush. I just paint onto the shoulder where I want it to go. There's one for each shoulder. Let's put a little bit of that on there. I have had these decals. I've dipped them in the water. It doesn't take long for them to start coming off. So this is a bit of a delicate process. So I got some tweezers. I'm going to use a hobby knife to, so I'm just going to hold that there, use the hobby knife to drag the decal over. So it looks like that now. And I will use the hobby knife to place the decal where I want it. So it needs to go a little bit higher up on the shoulder. About like that. Then you get a damp paper towel and you just press it down. Give a little pressure. That'll form it to all of the creases and everything in the uniform. So that's one side down. Now I need to do the same thing for this flag. So we'll get the flag about right. Flag's a little bit fiddly. It's pretty small, but there it is. So now I get my damp paper towel, gently press down. There we go. So those are now set. They are molded to the shape of the shoulder. Now I'm going to get some of this micro sol stuff. And this is for that painted on look. So we'll put this on here. Not too much. Just cover it. You don't want it to undo the decal. That will again form it a little bit more to the uniform. So the decal is now on. So when it's done, it's going to be a little shiny. There's going to be a little shine to it. So I got some of this matte varnish. So once both are dry, I will take a little bit of this matte varnish and just paint over the top of that, let that dry, and the model will be done. All right, and there we have it. The example is done. Here he is. Got his patches on. He is fully done. So he'll just stand in line here with the rest of the squad. So this is 2 sprues, the 2 review sprues that Warlord sent me. So thanks to them for that. Really awesome. It's convinced me to buy the Khaki starter set, which I have already ordered. So I will have a full force of these guys. Full platoon. I can use them in chain of command. I can use them in bolt action. That's one of the American armies I don't have, is an airborne army. I have part of one, but I've never had a full force. So it'll be nice to get these guys built. They're very nice. Like I said at the beginning, they're crisp, detailed, go together well. Just next level, 2nd gen Warlord models here. And you can see I did add some different helmets. So I have a couple of helmets with just the webbing. I have a couple of just bare helmets as well. Got these from the U.S. infantry sprue. Just watching the movies and reading, it seems like the jump helmets, if I want to call them that, were mainly D-Day, maybe a few days after. But some of them did keep the scrim on for longer, and some of them perhaps lost the scrim. Some of them perhaps lost their entire helmet cover altogether, so there's a bare helmet. But I wanted these guys to represent maybe D+7, D+8, a little bit later, but also be able to use them for D-Day itself. So, and mainly just to add some variety. I like a little bit of a ragtag look in my forces, and really the only way to do that with these guys is to change the helmets up. So I'm going to add probably a third, maybe even half, with either helmeted with nets or just bare helmets on top of the ones that come in the box, which are these scrim jump helmets. So that's the squad. That's a 12-man squad, LMG team. Yes, I double base them. Just personal preference. Game-wise does not matter. Here's their squad leader. So you can see he's got the rank insignia. I know, I'm sorry if my camera is not great, but there's the squad leader, and then just a bunch of rifles. Some of them are M1 Garands. Some of the guys have these M1 carbines as well. So this is 2 sprues worth of guys, full 12-man squad, and I'm very happy with them. And I look forward to getting that Khaki set and building on this group here with some machine guns, some artillery. There's a 6-pounder in there. There's a 75 mil howitzer, not a 6-pounder, a 57 mil. I guess it's the same thing, but for these guys it'll be the 57 mil, and it'll be a medium AT gun. And then there's also 2 new MMG teams and a mortar and a couple of special officers as well. So cool set. I can't wait to get it and get started on these. So again, apologize for the crude setup here. I'm not a painting tutorial expert by any means. I've learned a lot from watching some of these other guys who are pros at it, and maybe one day I'll get there as well. But hopefully it's enough to get you through a basic how to paint these dudes when you get them. So let me know what you guys think of this video, and we'll see you next time.